Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here. Got another Master Duel video for you. Coming at you with some Duel Live games. So, this is something that I don't normally do on the YouTube channel a ton, but I wanted to show off some ARTMAGE and ODION games, and after crafting Draco Tale, I wasn't left with as many materials as I would like to work with some of these other decks. Looking at Duel Live, something we do quite often over on the Patreon. For those who don't know, at patreon.com/Hexlex, I actually upload there usually 3 to 4 times a week, and Duel Lives featuring decks that I don't normally have time to get to or that look interesting are very often some of the content we do over there, as well as looking at new card releases as they're announced. So if you're interested in supporting the channel and seeing that content, again, head over to patreon.com/Hexlex. You could also join as a member here on YouTube to see the YouTube videos that get posted here ahead of time. So if you would consider supporting, that would be greatly appreciated. But even if not, I'm just glad you're here watching. Anyway, yeah, like I said, I wanted to look at some ARTMAGE and ODION games, especially ARTMAGE. So we're going to start with this going second ARTMAGE game here, where they're up against, I think it's a Fiends Mitsurugi variant. We showed off the deck list at the beginning. We're going to be doing that for each of these duels here. So, Duelist A is going to have the Habakiri. Duelist B firing back with the Max C. So they'll get a draw for this Saji summon. Ash Blossom's a really good pickup off the top of the deck here, able to negate the Saji. And it looks like we have not only an Imperm, but a few starters in our hand as well. I know the Field Spell is a pretty important starter for the ARTMAGE archetype. Looks like they're going to go for a Ritual Summon using the Futsunomi Tama to summon Habakiri. It's going to find a Fuelos here, which could represent even more draws for Duelist B. Mitsurugi Mirrors coming down. Sure enough, here is the Fuelos. Now, Mirror summons from hand or graveyard, so Fuelos won't draw off this summon. But it could still get some draws later on. Either way, Duelist B is going to get a Max C draw here as Murakumo gets summoned to the field. Now, the Field Spell is a pretty important starter for ARTMAGE, but I'm also kind of not a huge fan of it, in the sense that it'll lock you out of using monsters as material for extra deck summons except for ARTMAGE monsters or Medius Sapir, which is a very unique kind of lock. In theory, you could still summon generic extra deck stuff, if I'm reading it right, but you would only be able to use ARTMAGEs as materials. Okay, here they're going to try to go for the Field Spell. Duelist A is going to chain the Magatama to destroy it, after using Imperm to clear out the Murakumo effect. Habakiri revives. Mirror is also going to shuffle back into the deck here. There goes Mirror. Habakiri adds Prayers, and then is summoned. Alright, here is the Field Spell again, and there's Great Purification. You know, Duelist A should not have chained the Murakumo effect if they were going to tribute for Great Purification, because if that were the case, they could have used it now after the revive, but Duelist B did an excellent job of baiting out all this interaction here, because now the Murakumo comes back. They've already used the negate. It's already been summoned, so they can't board wipe again, and they can just use the quick play spell to place the Field Spell. They say the Field Spell effect will resolve, but yeah, the Field Spell, as mentioned, does a sort of archetype block. Again, you can still, in theory, summon generic extra deck monsters, I think, again, if I'm reading it right, but you can only use ARTMAGE and Medius Sapir as materials, which I'm not that big a fan of that kind of lock. I think it's one of the main reasons why ARTMAGE isn't better, is because you can't really blend it with other fusion archetypes, right? And I know a lot of people like the idea of decks being more, you know, forced into locks, but the reason why I've never been a big fan of it is because I feel like if you're in an archetype lock, well, I mean, I don't think locks in general are bad, but archetype locks specifically, I'm not a big fan, because at that point, it kind of feels like Konami's just building the deck for you, right? They're saying, oh, you can only use, you know, these cards to combo with this deck. But anyway, we're still able to make quite an impressive board here. Super polying their board away, also summoning one of the ARTMAGE boss monsters, the Diactorus, I think it's called? And we're going to finish them off with the Garura that we summoned off the Super Poly. So, pretty impressive going second duel from ARTMAGE. Probably one of the better ARTMAGE games that I'm going to end up seeing, because I have not run into this deck on ladder yet. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to make this video. I don't know about anybody else, but I myself, while dueling, have not seen a single ARTMAGE or ODION list. So, that's why I sought them out in Duel Lives. But here's the next ARTMAGE game we're going to take a look at here. Looks like this build is playing a Mitsurugi engine, which is interesting. I hadn't really thought about that, but it makes sense because, yeah, the lock says you cannot special summon for the rest of the turn except ARTMAGE or Metis the Pure or from the extra deck. Oh, I see. Got it. Or from the extra deck. So it's not that it's an well, it is an archetype lock. But you can still summon generic stuff from the extra deck. Okay, I did have that right. Got it. Okay. I guess you can still use non-ARTMAGE monsters as material. It's just that you can't special summon non-ARTMAGE monsters. So, I don't know. I don't feel like that necessarily blends that well with Mitsurugi, but let's see how well it'll end up panning out for this duelist, as they are up against Draco Tale, I believe that was. Going to second yet again. A lot of these are going to be, or at least these first couple anyway, are going to be going second. I think one of the ODION games might be, but I could be misremembering that. Okay, Duelist A is just going to set a card and pass here. It's pretty good news for us, as, you know, Duelist B, the ARTMAGE player. Alright, here's the field spell. Discarding that Great Purification. It was the only Mitsurugi card anyway. Alright. We got hit with Maxi. We have a Droll, but I don't know how much ARTMAGE searches off the top of my head, so I don't know if we're in a position to be able to use our own Droll and Lockbird against the Maxi. Dracotail Horn bouncing our monster. Yeah, because the field spell has to add, that's why we didn't Droll and Lockbird, that makes sense. We're going to Ash Blossom our summon here, so it seems like they might have drawn plays off that one Maxi draw. Clearly their hand was bricked before, but we're going to normal summon the Power Patron and then pass, leaving us with the option to quick effect Fuse during their turn. They're going for Rahu Dracotail. Looks like that was maybe the card they found. That and, well, Pan that might have been in their hand already because that doesn't really represent plays, but either way, they're going to get to make Arthelion here, and then Pan can force us to... Wait, it was Orgola. No, it was Orgola and Pan. Well, I'm trying to figure out, because I think, did they target our Power Patron with the Arthelion effect? I think Duelist A did. And if that's the case, that was a bit of a misplay, because they could have just used Pan to destroy it, but I guess now they can use Pan to destroy Guardian Chimera. Yep, and now Guardian Chimera effect won't resolve because it wasn't on the field at the end of the chain link. There goes the field spell as well. Woof. Yeah, that's going to be pretty brutal. Yeah, I know they had the 5 meta, but they used 2 cards, and I think one of the Arthelion bounces was targeting the Power Patron, so I think that was a bit of a misplay on Duelist A's part. Putting back the Droll like it even matters. I mean, I guess they can catch you for Lucius now, yeah. But their other card in hand is 5 mana, right? Even if they didn't triple tack and eat the Droll and Lockbird there, they could have easily still found plays, but I guess they're just going to OTK this turn, which makes sense. 5 mana fusing Medius, or not Medius, that's from the ARTMAGE deck, Lucius and Malulu. Going for Secretarian Dragon. That's pretty rough, actually. ARTMAGE catching strays with the Secretarian Dragon, because I'm pretty sure they're spellcaster monsters. So that is less than ideal. Yeah, reviving the Pan, and then that's going to be lethal on board, so... Yeah, I mean, ARTMAGE is a cool deck, but it is, at the end of the day, going to be a weaker one than Draco Tale, which is, of course, why we're seeing so many more Draco Tale decks on ladder than ARTMAGE. But we still need to take a look at Odon, because Odon is a deck that I thought was going to be a lot more popular. It's really cheap, it's seen a lot of really good competitive success in paper play, and I do think it is a strong deck. I think that Draco Tale is just incredibly popular right now because a lot of people have been looking forward to the Justice Hunters archetypes in particular, but also Draco Tale among the Justice Hunters archetypes is one of the fan favorites. So I think that's why Odion's getting really overshadowed as a deck here, but of course I wanted to show off some games that I found here on Duel Lives with it because it is a very, very good control deck. Alright, this time we're going to be going first. Opening the Man with the Mark as well as Super Poly, Maxi, and a couple of Floodgates. Doesn't get much better than that. Normal summon man with the mark is going to get hit with the infinite impermanence. Now, this is a pretty notable weakness of the Odon deck. Not only does it have fewer starters than a deck like Draco Tale, but it's a lot weaker to hand traps, including Droll and Lockbird. I mean, you know, Anubis, search Odon, get hit with the Droll, which even our opponent had in hand, you know, is going to be pretty devastating. Normal summon Droll, linking the Spirit with Eyes of Blue, is going to enable our opponent's Blue Eyes plays here, adding the Mausoleum of White, which they're going to use to pitch a Blue Eyes to the graveyard, Spirit F in order to revive the Blue Eyes. We're going to chain Max C in order to get a draw off that. Blue Eyes coming down. We still have plenty of back rows here to deal with, including there can be only one, which in this matchup will be quite good. Soul Drain will also stop the Maiden from reviving if they get access to that. But it looks like your opponent's going to set one card and then pass. Now we do have our Lord of the Heavenly Prison here, a pretty good counter to the current board state, as we can summon it with 3k defense, and it'll block against the Blue Eyes attacks here. Soul Drain's a pretty good card to flip up in this scenario, because it's a floodgate we want to establish at some point anyway. And then we actually get to set Treasures of the Kings with Lord of the Heavenly Prison. So not only can Lord of the Heavenly Prison set up these floodgate cards, but if we already have floodgates, it can also get us into our engine as well. Looks like they're going to try to use Primite Drill Beam on our card. We get to flip up Apophis, the Swamp Deity. See, the Soul Drain not only set up the Lord of the Heavenly Prison, but also the Apophis here as well. Duelist A's got a True Light they're going to use in order to set Wishes from deck, but that doesn't really concern us at this current board state. We can negate the Drill Beam with the Apophis, and now Treasures will resolve and set Apophis to Serpent. Since, of course, we have two or more face-down cards, we can add Anubis Last Judge. Duelist A is going to throw out a Max C here, but that's really not going to matter in this state, because we can add the man with the mark. They definitely are probably wishing they still had that Droll at this point, although to be fair, the Droll did get them into plays. Adding Verdict of Anubis, going to battle phase, we can crash Lord of the Heavenly Prison with the Blue Eyes, attacking with man with the mark and Apophis Swamp Deity, giving them 0 draws, and setting up a bunch of negates as well as these floodgates. Apophis the Serpent can set another Apophis the Swamp Deity from deck, which can be activated this turn. Verdict of Anubis can negate any spell or trap card. That's going to stop the Wishes here. And now Duelist A only has 2 cards left in hand, and Apophis the Swamp Deity is more than capable of using its negates here. Looks like we're going to use that in order to negate the True Light as well as the Mausoleum. Normal summon Veiler, that's going to get linked off into another Spirit. Looks like it is another Spirit with Eyes of Blue. Spirit F is going to revive the Blue Eyes that is in the graveyard. And then Wishes will be able to equip and go into Tyrant Dragon. It looks pretty threatening until you remember we have Super Poly face down. We're simply going to fuse Tyrant Dragon with the man with the mark that it's targeting for an attack, and that'll let us summon Magistus Chorozo of all monsters. But it makes sense, man with the mark is a spellcaster monster, making Chorozo an excellent Super Poly target for this deck, as if you have man with the mark, you can fuse it with any extra deck monster, Fusion, Synchro, Xyz, or Link. Here we can go into Divine Serpent Apophis, normal summon man with the mark, and get our engine all set back up again. We can even revive Anubis the Last Judge, and at this point we have more than enough damage on board to swing in for lethal, but it looks like Duelist B is going to style a little bit, summon their Mystical Scorpion of Circuit, Merciless rather, Scorpion of Circuit, adding Temple of the Kings and throwing that down before overlaying into, I think this is going to be Evolzar Lars is the rank 6 they normally have. Yeah, it's usually either that or the Constellar Ptolemy M7. Just showing our opponent how many negates we can still establish before we swung in for lethal. Even using Lars to stop the True Light here. And there is the final blow. Perfect. Alright, now we do have one more Odon game to go into before the end of this video, and this one is going to be a doozy. We're going to be taking a look at this Odon build, which is rocking a Primite package, which has seen notable play in the TCG with Odon, notable competitive success, that is, and even rocking Stardust Dragon, my favorite Synchro monster. And it looks like we're going to be up against Sky Striker in this case. So it's going to be a control mirror match. They're even running Evenly and Blackout Laughs for the thrust targets there. Okay, let's head into this final duel. As always, we're going to spectate from the perspective of the Odon deck. Or I guess as before. And let's see what our opening hand looks like. We're going first. Ah, because Duelist A selected to go second. Makes sense. Normal summon Ether Barrel here is going to set the Primite Lordly Load, which is going to flip up and then add the Drill Beam. Setting 3 and then Drill Beam F to summon Angel Trumpeter before Synchro Summoning into the Stardust Dragon. Again, I love it, my favorite Synchro monster. And it makes sense. This protects against Lightning Storm, Harpy's Feather Duster, a lot of common effects that would really threaten these back row decks, right? Like Stardust might not be the kind of inboard piece you would think would be useful against a lot of, current meta decks, but again, it's more about protecting against things that especially threaten face-down cards. Alright, Ray and Rose coming off the Ace-0 are going to get linked into Sky Striker Ace Zeke. The Zeke effect is going to banish the Stardust Dragon, and then link off into another Sky Striker Ace monster. It's going to be the Hayate. Going to battle phase, Hayate is going to attack directly, and then send the Engage from the deck to the graveyard. Now here comes the Kagari, which is going to end up adding the Engage back to the hand. Except we're going to flip up Apophis the Serpent. So remember, this will set Apophis Swamp Deity from our deck, and we can activate it this turn. Meaning that we have the ability to negate this Engage now. Duelist A is going to activate Called By on the Ether Barrel, only to chain linkage. We're going to use Drill Beam since we control a normal monster. Because, remember, the Apophis trap card monsters are treated as normal monsters while they are in the monster zone. So that's why our Drill Beam is live here. We do lose out on Ether Barrel, but we stop their linkage. And we can still use Swamp Deity on the Engage. Perfect. Alright. Keeping them off of Sky Striker cards, I think, is really good here. We're going to use Afterburners to get rid of a couple of our cards here before linking off Kagari into Shizuku. Perfect. We exactly want to see this, them ending their turn without making any further Sky Striker plays. They're going to add a copy of Linkage from deck to hand off the Shizuku, but they don't have any face down cards, which is really, really good for us. We're going to go Treasures of the Kings, setting Apophis the Serpent from deck. Now we can banish Nib to summon Merciless Scorpion, Scorpion F to add another Treasures of the Kings. Now we can add Anubis Last Judge off the field spell, and then send that in order to add Man with the Mark. Man with the Mark can be normal summon, and that's how we're going to get to... Oh, I thought we were going for Temple of the Kings. No, it's going to be Verdict of Anubis. Looks like we decided we did not need to activate any trap cards this turn. They're going to summon the Ray back, but we can battle over that with the Apophis the Serpent. Except that's going to link into Ace-0. Ace-0 F is going to add a copy of Engage from deck to hand. And unfortunately, our monsters on board are not going to be able to handle that. So, we're going to have to go to main phase 2, Exceed Summon into number 106 Giant Hand. I think this might be the build, or maybe that was another build I saw in a different Duel Live. I think it was the Duel Live build we saw on Patreon. Maybe, I could be misremembering, but I've seen some out of Odeon builds that are playing 7th Tachyon, and the idea is that you reveal 106 Giant Hand and search Man with the Mark, which isn't a bad idea to give the Odeon deck a little bit more consistency. The problem is that then you can't go into Divine Serpent Apophis or still a Hat Rabbit, which you very much want to do on turn 1. You could still make Gallic Granite and add Lord of the Heavenly Prison though, so maybe it's still something worth considering. In any case, looks like our Sky Striker opponent's going to go into a Camellia here. Then Super Poly, discard Evenly to fuse Giant Hand with Circuit, as they are both Earth monsters. That'll let them make Mud Dragon of the Swamp. Rose F in order to summon. They have quite a few monsters in their main monster zone now, so it's going to be a lot harder for them to use Sky Striker spells at this point. Alright, going back over to our turn. Looks like we're going to shuffle back in order to summon Anubis the Last Judge. Mud Dragon's going to activate, that's fine. We're going to add Anubis Last Judge in order to discard it as well, in order to add the Man with the Mark. Normal summoning the Man with the Mark, we can send away our field spell to activate another one, and now we can set Apophis the Serpent from our deck. Going straight into battle phase here, we're going to battle over the Mud Dragon. Interesting. Duelist B is taking a very slow approach to this game. Is this going to be still a Hat Rabbit? Looks like it is. Yep. So now we can finally establish the... Oh no, it's the Azaroon. They're going for Angel Statue Azaroon. I was going to say we're finally about to establish the Statue of Anguish pattern, but... The Azaroon is also not bad here, to be fair. Yeah, still a Hat Rabbit, cannot be destroyed by battle. And funnily enough, both their monsters have 1500 attack, so we didn't even take any amount of battle damage here. I do feel like Duelist B could have potentially ended this game a little bit sooner. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but not even just their plays within the last, like, couple of turns. I just mean, like, last turn, rather. But just over the duel in general, I feel like they're definitely taking it kind of slow. I mean, it is a control deck, but I feel like as a control deck, you really need to make the most of when you have advantage over your opponent, especially in a control mirror, and that's a good time to push. It looks like they are going for a push now, to be fair. Alright, Camellia is going to activate, as well as the Ray effect. It looked like we were on a clean line to lethal, but Ray is going to summon, and then Camellia is going to get rid of the Anubis. Now, Azaroon goes to battle, but Duelist A is going to go into Kagari, which is now stronger than the Camellia and the Azaroon and the Still Hat Rabbit, and also adds back Engage. Apophis, a Swamp Deity, can still battle here, but it's not going to be lethal at this point. Duelist A is going to hang on with 1900 life points before Duelist B links off into a second copy of Still Hat Rabbit. This one is going to activate, and that's going to set the Statue of Anguish pattern face down. Looks like we're also linking our Apophis monsters into Mrs. Radiant, which will buff our Earth monsters. Alright, here's Statue of Anguish pattern coming out at 3k defense thanks to the Mrs. Radiant. And there's that Harpy's Feather Duster that we've been oh so scared of. I mean, you're always scared of as the Odon deck, but here we're going to use Apophis, a Swamp Deity, in order to take care of that. Statue of Anguish pattern popping our own Mrs. Radiant, which can now add the 106 Giant Hand back from the graveyard to the extra deck. Engage is coming down. We're going to negate that with the Verdict of Anubis. And now we're going to go Apophis, a Serpent, to set another Swamp Deity from our deck. So even if they have more spell cards to activate, we still have more negates. Like another Engage, yep. It's like Duelist B was anticipating that exact follow-up. So here's another Swamp Deity. There's another negate. I also like using Still Hat Rabbit to pop our own back row to make more room for more back rows. It definitely makes sense here. Duelist A forced to go into the Typhon, which Azaroon can simply negate and destroy, before setting one card and passing. Now this is the full control setup here, where opponents down to a measly 2 cards. Actually, they are using their last 2 cards here. Super Poly, discard the linkage in hand in order to fuse 2 of our Apophis monsters into Garura, probably? Yeah. But that compared to our, 6-card hand, 4 cards on the field, yeah, this is definitely where a lot of control games want to end up here. They can get their Garura draw when it's destroyed, but unless it's exactly Battle Fader or Swift Scarecrow, it's not going to save them here. Alright, that's going to do it for our duels here. Thank you so very much for checking these games out with me. Hope you like this format where we can watch these games even if I don't have these decks built. If you want to see more, again, check out patreon.com/hexlex. But let's move on to our outro now. Hey everybody, Hexlex here. Thank you so very much for watching all the way to the very end of the video, which by the way is one of the best ways to support the channel. Speaking of supporting the channel, take a look at the names on screen. These are folks who have been so generous as to either join as a YouTube member or subscribe over on patreon.com/hexlex to support. There's also perks for doing so. If you would like to see YouTube videos early, as well as some exclusive videos that get uploaded to YouTube, but for one reason or another I decide not to publish, definitely go go ahead and hit that join button to see content early, as well as some exclusive content. If you're looking for more exclusive content, over on patreon.com, I upload exclusive videos that are not posted on YouTube just about every single day. Whether you choose to subscribe over on Patreon, join as a YouTube member, or simply continue to watch, your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you so very much. But for now, this is Hexlex. I am signing out, and I hope that you have a fantastic day.